The latest round of property cooling measures are here. In Parliament, Finance Minister Lawrence Wong introduced a bill to amend the Stamp Duties Act to help plug gaps in existing policies. Effective Tuesday, the Finance Ministry says additional conveyance duties, or ACDs, will apply to the transfers of shares of property holding entities into living trusts. Well, this comes a day after a new additional buyer stamp duty went into effect. This 35% will be payable for all residential property transferred into living trusts, now regardless of whether a beneficiary has been identified or not. But those with an identifiable beneficiary may receive a variable refund from IRAS depending on certain criteria. Now, previously, living trusts with no identifiable beneficiary were exempt. But what's a living trust? Well, living trusts are usually created by the wealthy to manage their assets for beneficiaries like children. An unidentified beneficiary acts as a placeholder and could be meant for a child that's not yet born or a child who has yet to fulfill certain conditions, such as getting married. Well, the government hopes the additional duties will help make Singapore's residential property market more stable and sustainable. But to what extent will this be a game changer? Well, it depends on how deep your pockets are. Heidi Ng reports.
If you're a property owner who wants to transfer equity interest in a property holding entity or transfer a residential property into a living trust, then this applies to you. Consider it a wealth tax of sorts, says one analyst.
Because the wealthy has the ability to pay the amount in full, whereas the man on the street may have to rely on loan, and then they have to pay the current ABSD rate based on how many properties that they own. So in a way that is actually not equitable. So the rich are actually paying less taxes compared to the average person. So this comes in sort of make everything equal and fair to everybody.
But analysts say such transactions involving an unidentified beneficiary in living trusts are rare. About 50 such transfers a year at most, per one estimate.
There may be more transactions of such going on, and while they are still not a lot, because you have to cough up a lot of cash because you have to pay your equity, but the quantum is usually quite large, so it still represents a very significant chunk of tax revenue.
But they are still a small minority.
This is really impact on a few buyers that are trying to circumvent ABSD by waiting it out. And those buyers are not a lot in the markets, to be honest. Those that buy trusts for their children, some of them may not even have ABSD because their children are Singaporean and have no property in their name.
So the impact on the property market is limited. The analysts also expect foreign interest in local property to remain strong.
Singapore is actually seen as a safe haven for foreigners and even for locals itself. And then with inflation, property is also seen as a good hedge against inflation. And these few reasons coming all along, it actually shows that there may be a trend that money is going to flow into the property market.
He says to keep the property market sustainable, what's needed is more vigilance over debt.